after the game. And there we see the handshake, Dubov stopping the clock in resignation. And wow, Robert, I think we have an early candidate already. It's only round 3, but for game, not only of the round, but of the tournament.
Early candidate for game of the year. That was so electric. I mean, throughout the whole game, it was Dubov's position. Rook takes b7. Don't forget, he sacrificed a rook and he sacrificed a pawn early in the game. He put his knight on the rim that was captured, double pawns. Everything about this game was special. And some would say it's unfortunate that the game was spoiled by a mistake. I don't think it was spoiled. I mean, I don't expect any result. I don't expect players to find perfect moves, but this game was so entertaining. You can't ask for more as a chess fan. And I right now am a chess fan. I know I'm commentating. I'm doing my best to give you the best analysis I can, but I am.
What an amazing game that was. Daniil Dubov was white, Vidit Gujrathi was black, and I'm going to take you through some critical moments of the game. I think that king walk to hunt the king will be remembered for a long time to come, and that came against Daniil Dubov. So let's go and start looking at the game. After e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, Dubov played the Italian game with bishop c4. Considering that Vidit also plays Catalan with the white side, I think Daniil Dubov chose to go into the e4 territory. And after knight f6, d3, bishop c5, we have the standard Italian. And now after the black pawns are on c7, d6 and e5, bishop g5 makes sense. And now this bishop cannot come back to unpin. And another important thing to note is that the pawn on c3 obstructs the knight. So black need not worry about knight d5, but he has some other challenges. Like there are some ideas connected with d4, and white also has ideas with knight d2, knight f1, and to play without castling. This is a position rich in ideas. In the game he played h6, and after bishop h4, a5 we come to the first critical moment of the game. Here Daniil Dubov was playing really quickly, and after a5 he played knight a3, which is sort of new. But after a5, Adiban had played knight bd2 against Vidit in the Tata Steel Chess India event in November, and I saw this game live where Adiban went on to sacrifice this piece on e5, but later Vidit Gujrathi went on to win this game. Coming back to the game after knight a3, Vidit spent some time here trying to understand the nuances connected with knight a3. Ultimately, he decided to chop off the knight with bishop into a3. And if you take a stock of this position, white has double bishop, whereas black has a solid pawn structure. And in this position, Vidit came with a deep plan, I would say. It's quite risky, but it did pay off if you take the result into account. But in this position, I think you can also consider this as a position for training and try to understand what black could do. I think some ideas are g5, bishop e6, queen e7. These are some standard ideas in the position. Based on the pawn structure we have, Vidit went with queen e7. The other ideas that I shared are also worth playing. And after castles, here Vidit did a Breyer in a way. Like he tried to use the Breyer idea that comes from the Rai Lopez, where black reroutes his knight, giving some scope for the c pawn, like in this position here. Black plays knight b8 and reroutes the knight to d7, and then the bishop comes to b7. This is a typical Rai Lopez Breyer. Coming back to the game, he played knight b8 here, and after d4 he goes knight d7, and Daniil Dubov plays rook b1. Again aimed at making sure that the b7 isn't under attack, and this bishop is constantly supporting b7. Also, any ideas to castle on the queen side will start looking very dangerous. So I think this idea is very nice, and in a way he's provoking Vidit to capture the pawn on e4. And Vidit went for it. It was a very brave decision, but I think in this position any other move looks like black is slightly uncomfortable. But yeah, this definitely involves a lot of calculation. So I think this was a very brave decision. After bishop g3, he picked up the pawn on e4. And our commentator Robert has also pointed out that queen c2 is a good move, and Daniil Dubov went for it. The point is that if black takes on g3, then there is fg3, and the rook on f1 suddenly is in the game just by being where it was. So I think this is a great compensation for white. But I think one ideal continuation here is just to give up the pawn. For example, just go knight b6, question this bishop, and once the bishop goes to d3, you go bg4, and then after de5, do not take the pawn, just castle on the queen side, and just rely on this knight on b6, which is actually a good defender here right now. And variation could go as e d6, and let's say rook d6, bishop f5, bishop f5, queen f5, and let's say queen e6, we still have a game. But in the game after queen c2, Vidit played f5, and you can see that a lot of squares are now weak, and it looks very sensitive. It looks like Vidit is walking on a very tight rope, a very sensitive position. And here Daniil Dubov chose the right continuation. He played d takes e5, d takes e5, and then played rook to e1. Again, focusing on the e5 pawn. At any time, in this position, at any time, if black decides to take on g3, then this e5 pawn, is sensitive. So after rook fe1, knight takes g3, h takes g3. Vidit went with e4. But in this position, after rook fe1, already when I was looking at this position, I was feeling that it's not so easy to play as black, because white has threats. For example, if you play a move like, let's say, rook f8, then white can just play bd3 and undermine your knight. You cannot move this knight because e5 drops. So after rook fe1, knight g3, h g3, he played e4. And in order to undermine the center, Daniil Dubov goes g4. Very nice. And in order to protect the center, Vidit goes knight c5, so that this knight not only takes care of e4, but also takes care of p7. But the knight is overloaded, as Daniil Dubov correctly points out. After knight d4, rook f8, he picks on f5, and here comes a brilliant move by Daniil. Really loved this move. He played a rook takes b7, which I think definitely deserves a brilliant mark. The point is that if black takes the rook, then white has this deadly check. The king cannot come here because of the fork, and after bishop b5, if you go bishop d7, there is rook takes e4, again losing for black. And after bishop b5, if you go king f7, this disconnects the rook, and white can pick up the bishop. And then after queen e5, bishop c4, check, king f6, you can just take the pawn on h6, and white is again heavily better. So yeah, this was a fascinating move, and it looked like Daniil Dubov is going to take point home. But in this position, Vidit found the only move in the position. He saw that idea that black has, and he saw that the king cannot go to f7 because it blocks the connection, and also white's knight is also likely to come to c6. He plays a very cool move, rook f6, which is the only move to survive. From here, Vidit plays a lot of only moves to survive. So after rook f6, his opponent played queen b1. But in this position, I think already rook b5 was good enough to build over the advantage. For instance, if black goes and attacks the rook, white can just keep rook b6 and keep going. After queen c7, maybe you can do something like knight f5. If rook f5, then there is something like this also possible, very flashy. But after, let's say, if you don't want to play with knight takes f5, even a move like this rook b1 is also fine. White is better. But Daniil Dubov went with queen b1, and now again knight b7, queen b7. In this position, the rook is attacked. So the only correct move, rook d8, was played. And then after knight f5, rook f5, rook e4. Vidit chose the only move here. If you play rook e5, then you are lost because of queen c6 check. So you have to be really careful. For instance, if you move king to f8, and there is queen takes h6, and then there is queen h8, this is losing. Also, if queen c6, if you go rook d7, there is, let's say, queen g6, and then there is queen g8, and then there is a rook into e5, again winning. So after rook into e4, Vidit chose the only move, that is rook d1 check, and after king h2 played rook e5, and then after queen c6, king d8, queen 8, king d7. This position is a draw. Bishop b5 check, again king e6, the only correct move. And then after queen c8 check, king f6, again the only correct move. In this position, Daniil Dubov played queen h8 check, and here after king f5, Daniil Dubov had to find the only move to make a draw. And this was the next critical moment where Daniil Dubov went wrong. He blundered in this position. Maybe take a moment to see what you would do as white, to just take the perpetual. And when I say perpetual, of course you need to take a look at the check. So queen c8 check was the correct move. The idea is that if king takes e4, there is a mate, which is very cute. You see the mate on d6 with queen coming to c6. So in this position, queen c8 check, and black has to take the draw with the king g6, queen g8, king f6, queen h8, king f5, queen c8, and it's a draw. Like, this was an ideal result based on the current position, but after f3, which is a blunder, the evaluation is suddenly in black's favor, and he took rook takes e4, and after king takes e4, queen 8 check, king e3, bishop c6 did not help because the rook is already in a great position, and after queen e5 check, pawn to g4, there is queen h5 followed by queen h1 threatened, and here Daniil Dubov resigned after queen a7 and king d2 because there's also queen h5 here again, and there's no good check because if you play queen f2, there is queen e2, and that's where the game ended. So it felt like Daniil Dubov had it almost within his reach, but then some precise moves and good defense by Vidit helped him to win this very important game against Daniil Dubov. So Vidit is in a great form right now, and more action left. I hope you liked this game and the video. I'll be back with another video soon, and until then, take care. Bye bye.